And we're live. Oh, and hello, Discona. Even though I was talking to you on Discord less than 10 seconds ago. Good evening, everyone. Today we're going to be responding to Prime Minister's questions for whenever it was yesterday. I can't remember the date. I'm too lazy. And old. Mostly lazy. Well, okay, tired more than lazy. But, you know. It is early, John. But I was on Discord, and I'm kind of bored. I'd finished everything I needed to do, so I thought, well, Discona, in fact, encouraged me to. So, Dibby, if you want to blame someone, blame Discona, okay? So, as you can tell, I'm a bit tired. Okay. I should have changed my avatar to the Charmander onesie one to reflect my exhaustion. All the overtime this week has done a number on me. Hello, Tiger Lily. Fuck you, Discona. So yeah, we're going to be responding to PMQs. But first, buffering? Buffering? Really? Dear oh dear. Well, it seems fine on my end. I do apologise for that. In any case, I want to talk about what I've been moaning about on my server and in my last video. See, I had this TeePublic t-shirt account, right? And it got terminated. Now, I went to them after Teespring delayed a payment to me by about 3 months. It took them to finally pay me. And I've reactivated Teespring since then. And I do have a new t-shirt design that was being made for TeePublic, but no, it's going to go to Teespring instead. And I got an email last night, just before midnight, telling me my TeePublic account had been terminated for breaching terms of service. I have no idea what I did to breach terms of service. On that site, I had 2 t-shirt designs. One was just Judge Moist and the other one was my Charmander avatar. Charmander onesie avatar. So, the only conclusion I can draw is some kind of copyright issue, which would make very little sense to me because I own the rights to both of them. Someone could now say, oh, and Dali mentioned Nintendo. If it's the case that Nintendo claimed for a t-shirt, wow. And if it's the Judge Moist one, then yay. I'm deeply honoured that even though no one bought that. Anyway, fuck it, let's just do this. PMQs today is going to focus on how everything is in crisis and how the only way we can solve this is with money. Like, literally, the only way you can solve any problems in the world today is with money. First things first, I'm going to put that there so I can see the chat. If Nintendo did, then the judge wouldn't have. It was both simultaneously. Well, my entire account was terminated, so I didn't get to see what the complaint was. In fact, the email is quite specific, and quite a number of you on my server will be able to can see this in the general text chat. It is the exact email. Hello, Noob with a Brush. Hello, Neil, Sean, Godiva, Steam as well. Hello, Steam. I don't give hugs, Miss Steam. I only abuse with tentacles instead. I'm sorry, you don't get a hug. Someone else hug Miss Steam for me, please. I'm too tired, okay? So let's just get into this. Because this is, we're gonna start from the beginning, because the first question, before we get to Corbin, we're gonna get to somebody else. And I want you to hear this, because I couldn't stop laughing when I heard this, and it made me chuckle quite a lot. So I'm going to try and... Right. No. Right, come on. There we go, right.
Colleagues and others, in addition to my duties in this house, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Vera Hobhouse.
This question, by the way, is the single most important question in politics today. Also, by comparison to what Jeremy Corbyn asks, this question is the single most important question you're going to hear today. To any girls in my chat that wear skirts, I'm not denigrating any potential incidents that are going to now be referenced. It just made me chuckle, okay? And it's very important that... Fuck, I can't even commit to that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Upskirting is the vile practice of taking a photo under a woman's skirt without her consent.
The number of paparazzi out of a job if they introduce this into the Sexual Offences Act is going to be through the roof. Does anyone remember this? The fuss people made when journalists managed to snap a shot of a, quote, celebrity getting out of a car. See how graceful they could do it? If they got into a black cab, it wasn't that difficult, unless they were slightly charged. But if it was in a car with very low ground clearance, they had to lift their leg up, and it almost became a very, what's that film called with Sharon Stone, the legs crossing thing? That. The fuss newspapers went to. Hello, Laura. Britney Spears, yeah, she used to get this all the time before she had a mental breakdown and shaved her head. Yeah.
This is neither a specific nor sexual offence under the current law in England and Wales. I've been working closely with Gina Martin, who's been campaigning to change this for months, and her lawyer, to produce a private member's bill to make upskirting a specific crime under the Sexual Offences Act 2003.
Okay, thank you, by the way, for Basic Instinct. Thank you. Miss Steam, I know what you wear, and I know what's underneath what you wear. Just saying. I think, in all seriousness, I don't know. Oh, I don't know if this should qualify as a sexual offence. I don't know. I'm a bit torn. I'll let you guys in the chat decide whether it should be a criminal offence or a sexual offence, because I'm a bit torn on it. Me and Miss Misa are always going to have hot tentacle action. Always. But that's pretty much for every female I ever encounter. That includes every single one of you in the chat. Just saying. She sounds like she's having a stroke. Well, I do certainly choose the right pause face for it.
Both of us has joined us here today. Mr. Speaker, I asked the Prime Minister, does she agree with us that the law in England and Wales should be reformed so that in all circumstances women like Gina and indeed the Honourable...
You gotta be kidding me. There are people actually in the galley overlooking PMQs while this super important question... Oh god, I feel so bad for laughing. I feel really bad for laughing, but at the same time, it's just... Oh no, I can't. It's just... Oh, it's too funny. It is. It's a get a punch in the face of it. In fact, I think if you commit the horrific crime of upskirting, the person you've done it to should be allowed to punch you in the face, or, and yes, Tiger Lily, moist. I think that there should be a reciprocated incident. Maybe have the dude or the girl wear a skirt and then put in the position of people taking pictures up the skirt they've now been forced to wear. See how they like it. You know, eye for an eye thing. Punch in the face seems to work though.
The lady herself will be protected from upskirt images being taken without consent.
Nobody's taking pictures up Theresa May's skirt. No one. Okay? Nobody wants to. Nobody ever wants to. Okay, I'm sure that actually, if I remember, there was a guy. Excuse me. I have a kilt. I used to. I actually wore it to my year 11 prom. Just to address Tiger Lily there for a second. But the oh fuck it, what was it? Oh, yeah, there was a guy on a Skype group I was in. Now it's predominantly a Discord server and a Twitter group. His name was, was it Bundy Bearheart or something like that? He was like a 15-year-old kid who was into pensioners. So I'm sure there are some people out there who actually would want to upskirt Theresa May as much as they would also want to do it to Diane Abbott and see her ginormous cock. However, I don't... I just realised as well the way this picture is now framed. On the screen you can see 5 women wearing skirts. Oh dear. On my screen I see 6 because there's actually one more to the right. Oh no. The solidarity. Oh dear. Oh, let's just get to how the Prime Minister addresses this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I first of all say to the Honourable Lady that I share the outrage
Can someone time Saki out for hate speech?
at this intrusive behaviour that she has referred to and the distress that it can cause to victims. We're determined to ensure that victims do have confidence that their complaints will be taken seriously.
Who do you sue for upskirt PTSD? Oh, Jesus Christ. I want to take this seriously. Obviously, it is intrusive, and of course you should not do it. I know there are a lot of people who have done this. I know people who have done it in my life. Not me. I would never do that. I just slip a tentacle up, you know, because I'm a good gentleman. But something about this, in the setting it is in, I'd be the only guy in that room smiling, okay? Someone make a law to make sure the law is taken seriously.
It is possible currently to bring prosecutions, but my right honourable friend, the Justice Secretary, is examining the state of the law at the moment to make sure that it is fit for purpose, and as part of that work, he is considering her bill in...
Wait, so you're telling me a man is going to be discussing a sexual offence and deciding whether or not to bring it to law? A man? Does he wear a skirt? He can never understand what it's like to be a whammon. Oh, and thank you, I believe, Laura. Thank you for doing that. Very kind of you. I hope you learnt your lesson, Saki. If you want to instead, just jump on the voice chat in Discord. I'm not going to hear you, but you can talk to Discnar there.
Indeed.
Let's skip ahead now, because the next question I think is Brexit related. I just don't give a shit. Basically, typically the first question, as I've stated before, is one that will require some thought. The second question is always kind of a plant. It's there just to get the government to look good. And I want them to look like shitheads. Because reasons. So let's just jump ahead a little.
These go to him and his family when the Home Secretary was forced to resign due to the failures of her predecessor.
Right. Okay, hang on. I could go up a little bit. Right, the annoying thing is, last week, the former Speaker of the House, I think his name is Lord Springburn, something Martin, I believe. He is a Scottish guy. He was the Speaker for 9 years. He then went to the House of Lords, became Lord Springburn, I believe. He passed away last week. So both Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition have obviously paid homage to him for years of service, and rightly so, of course. So catching his question without that bump is... so I'm just...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Fuck it, you're just going to have to listen to it, I'm sorry. Why would upskirting not be considered voyeurism? I'm not doing that anymore. Fuck it.
I joined the Prime Minister in paying tribute to Michael Martin, former Labour MP for Glasgow Springburn and later Speaker of the House. He worked in the engineering industry in Glasgow. He was active in the then AUEW, and he and I first met when we were fellow organisers in the National Union of Public Employees in the 1970s, campaigning for decent public sector pay.
Fuck, you're old.
And a national minimum wage. Michael loved the community he represented, loved his family, and our deepest thoughts and sympathies go to him and his family at this present time. Mr. Speaker, did the Prime Minister feel the slightest pang of guilt when the Home Secretary was forced to resign due to the failures of her predecessor?
Oh, that's such a shit question. Oh my god. it actually is a really shit question, because in this particular instance, it doesn't just trace back to Theresa May, it traces back to the dude before her that was a Labour minister. That genuinely, that's how far back it goes. It goes back to 2009. So, it's not just a shit question, but it's basically a case of, oh look, you look bad, but we don't look bad because even though it was before us, they don't represent us. They're not the same Labour as us. They're new Labour. We're old Labour. We're socialist, commie, Labour. Idiot. This is probably the only question that's short. And a number of the comments that Jeremy Corbyn makes seem to focus on money, but this one focuses on faith. It's a snide shot, and that's why it fails. And I do apologise to anyone who obviously is a big Corbyn fan. If you're a Corbyn fan, I do apologise, but your beloved benevolent leader isn't. It's just a shit question. I can't be the only person that thinks that, by the way. Oh shit! Pull the chat up. Sorry. Fuck off. I don't like this thing on YouTube live chat where it has top chat and live chat, because obviously it presets to top chat, which means I miss everything. Ooh, Saki throwing shade at Laura. If only this was the Kumite. Anyway, before Theresa May answers the question, I think if anyone should feel guilt, we'd have to trace this back to Gordon Brown, who's no longer a member of Parliament anymore. I think he's a president of a charity now. I think. So I guess he gets to be a president now, or a chairman. Probably president as a nice sticker-worthy title. Anyway.
Can I say to the Right Honourable Gentleman that I think it might be helpful if I first update the House on the actions the government has taken and is continuing to take in relation to the Windrush. In relation to the Windrush generation, because my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, will be addressing the House on this later today. We all share the ambition to make sure we do right by members of the Windrush generation, and that's why he will be announcing a package of measures to bring transparency on the issue, to make sure that the House is informed, to reassure members of this House, but more importantly, to reassure those people who have been directly affected. Speed is of the essence, and my right honourable friend will be commissioning a full review of lessons.
The new Home Secretary is the guy who you can't see in frame, but he's a bald guy, but you can see his ear on the right side. His name is Saeed Javid. There are some things we're going to go through once she finishes her answer, so we're not going to get to Jeremy Corbyn's next question just yet. Some video clips and articles. So even though I'm really tired and couldn't be bothered to link any of it, I do have them at least. Sources, I guess.
Learned, independent oversight and external challenge.
The lesson learned thing is going to come up in a minute, just when I go on a tangent.
With the intention of reporting back to this House before we rise for the summer, and the review will have full access to all relevant information in the Home Office, including policy papers and casework decisions.
Jeremy.
Excuse me, that was so riveting. So after that, after PMQs, long after it, Saeed Javid answers questions on Windrush, and I have from, because I couldn't be bothered to go and find a better place for this video, from RT UK. So I'm just going to play a short clip from the start of it because they live streamed it. And it just the first bit with Diane Abbott, but then we're going to go to the Sun because there was a clip. There was something that was said that Saeed says. Sorry. And it amused me, but it also raises very interesting questions. So I'm just going to let Diane Abbott have a little moment.
Abbott.
Oh, fucking hell. Oh, God. She's built like a brick shithouse.
To ask the Prime Minister to make a statement on the government's handling of the Windrush crisis.
Oh, God. She's so slow as well. Just a thing, by the way, later. Something she says as an accident or a fuck-up, I'm going to reference later. Because she makes a lot of fuck-ups. But now we've got that little shit out of the way. Because the statement is an hour long. And I can't really appreciate a shit brick house. Thank you. I was always raised at being a brick shit house. But it might be the wrong way around. That was how I was raised anyway. So, for this, I need to switch frame, don't I? Yeah, right. So this video is taken from The Sun. It is a clip from Saeed Javid's speech. And it's a clip about certain comments he's received since taking office for only a couple of days. And it made me chuckle.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I was talking about members of the hard left that have created a hostile environment in their own party.
Now, to clarify something, Saeed has made it clear that he doesn't want to use hostile environment with regards to immigration. He'd rather stick with compliant environment. So hostile environment, even though it is still being associated with the immigration policy of the government, he's using it in regards to the hard left, who have decided to do the following.
And people that welcome my appointment by calling me a coconut and an Uncle Tom.
Coconut. I remember saying this to a few people last night and tonight, in fact, before I even started this. And I know it's not right, but oh, it's so good. Ah. Oh, fuck this shit. Oh, okay, so we can certainly the coconut thing, fucking hell. But the Uncle Tom comment is quite interesting because, as most people know, Uncle Tom is a reference to people who are of colour that are subservient or obedient without fault to a white person. Basically, they may as well be the servant. And this is like that argument almost used against anyone of colour that doesn't represent the right party, the correct party, sorry. And that's like a purity test. It doesn't feel right. This is one of the wonderful things about this country. Actually, this man epitomises one of the wonderful things about this country. How truly culturally different and yet inclusive we are. Fuck's sake, the man was raised, I believe even though he's a non-practicing Muslim, he's married to a white Christian woman, and they have 4 kids. I mean, he's the very model of what this country should be. Maybe not on the policy part, but certainly on how inclusive and diverse. And that's a good thing, isn't it? A race is so irrelevant, and yet, I've got an article for this, with tweets and Facebook messages sent to him, calling him an Uncle Tom, even the one calling him a coconut. It's so funny. The seriousness on coconut. But the Uncle Tom one's a really interesting one because it's from hard left people, one of whom was a Miliband Labour activist. And they've gone out of their way to talk his appointment down as if somehow his race is relevant. Although it is his background's relevant with regards to the Windrush generation. Yes, that is true. However, he is not subservient to a white he's not, the slave to a white person. He's just another politician, and that's how you should treat them. There are on the back benches behind this man, and behind Theresa May, there are a number of ethnic minority MPs. I know this because I bothered to actually scan the room when one of the later questions is asked. there are quite a number of people from ethnic minorities in the back. Okay, maybe there aren't that many on the front benches. Maybe that could be addressed in the future if race is so fucking important, which it isn't. It is utterly irrelevant. Coconut, though. I head like a bong. Actually, that, believe it or not, and I read an article on this, there's actually confirmation from that his wife is the very reason his head is shaved like that. Because she thinks it makes him look more, is it professional? Something like that. People take men with a shaved head more seriously instead of having what he would have, and that would be the hair around the side and back. Coconut, though, huh? Although there is a subtle difference between him and a coconut, and it could certainly be argued that by different, although it would be different, a coconut actually has hair. Anyway, let's go back to... Actually, no, I don't actually have articles for this. Oh, I do. Okay, so after the speech was given by Saeed Javid, there was a debate where the government ended up defeating a Labour motion in the Commons which sought access to documents laying out the policies behind the Windrush crisis, promising instead to allow an independent oversight for an internal review into what went wrong, which I believe Diane Abbott called a betrayal of the Windrush generation. I mean, how salty are you, bitch? I don't... just an interesting little side thing here about hair. I don't shave my head at all. I have long, luscious locks because I don't like having short hair. Never have. Never will. Keep it long. In any case, there was a debate, and it basically would it was talking about what the measures, measures to bring transparency, and the issue would include like independent oversight and challenge to a lessons learned review, which are already underway within the Home Office. This review then will seek, and this is a quote from Saeed Javid, the review will seek to draw out how members of the Windrush generation came to be tangled in measures designed for illegal immigrants, why that was not spotted sooner, and whether the right corrective measures are now in place. My main complaint about Labour's position is that they basically want everything open now so they can cherry pick a few very select quotes. That's what they want. They don't want an organised report, which would in fact be better. They want everything on the table, and by having everything on the table they can then just use whatever they want, which puts the Prime Minister in a very difficult position, which is what they are, that's the whole point of opposition though, isn't it? To look for the soundbite to get the cheap points, which makes them look even more bitchy, petty, pathetic than usual. Saeed Javid himself has also called this request for the information to be passed to the Commons Home Affairs Committee a massive open-ended fishing expedition, which is in fact exactly what it is. And that's why I don't trust the idea of this being published the way they want it published. I'm glad it was defeated, because I think if it was published the way they wanted, it would just cause so much shit. People don't trust politicians enough as it is. I don't think anyone's going to want to start trusting Labour just because they got something done that would effectively stir more shit and wouldn't solve any problems. It would just breed and create more victims. Unless I'm mental here and I'm the only person that thinks this. If I am, yeah, sorry about that. Oh shit, live chat's gone again, stupid thing. Anyway, let's go back to PMQs because I'm done with that. Where is it? Boom, gone. Right. Continue.
Mr. Speaker, this was a crisis made in the Home Office by successive Home Secretaries.
Fasaki, crisis. That has now been said. Congratulations.
And only a week ago, only a week ago today, the member for Hastings and Rye, then Home Secretary, was denying there were any targets in front of the Home Affairs Select Committee.
Yeah, she fucked up.
On Monday, the Prime Minister told the media, when I was Home Secretary, yes, there were targets. One wonders why the Prime Minister didn't tell...
I thought and this may sound a bit weird, but I could have sworn everyone knew this. Like, literally everyone knew that the government were going to introduce targets. I wasn't it in a manifesto? In 2010, was it in the Conservative manifesto? It might have been. Might have been, I said, by the way, just don't trigger Laura too much.
Her Home Secretary about that. And the pain that's been caused to the Windrush generation needs to be resolved very rapidly.
And it will be, bitch. You don't need to tell the government this. They've already indicated that they are going to. But nice job.
And full compensation paid.
How much compensation would you give them? In all seriousness, Jeremy Corbyn, I would love you to sit there and just tell us. Oh, oh, I love it. Oh, okay. Okay. I've got a reply from T Public, so I'm doing this now. Hi, Omegon. Thank you for reaching out, and there was actually something extremely suspicious with a couple of accounts, including yours, and external linking. We found the problem, though, and your account is now re-enabled. Sorry about this miscommunication, and please let me know if you have any questions. Oh, you fucking... Oh, you are an abortion... You're the reason abortions exist, okay? T-Public, you are that very reason. Dickheads. Oh, dear, oh, dear. Anyway. Oh, amazing. I might get cheeky actually and do that. You fucking idiots. Anyway.
As quickly as it can be possibly done, and an understanding of the hurt that they...
Oh, understanding of the hurt. Let's just get all the white people in this country, all of you white people, with your whiteness, put yourself in chains and go beg a person of colour for a forgiveness. And when you've done it to one, go to the next one, and the next one. Hopefully by the time you've apologised to all the people of colour, you'll be dead and there'll be no more white people, because then this country can truly prosper.
They feel. But this isn't the only failure of this government or the only failure of its policies. The government used to talk about a long-term economic plan.
Ooh, I feel a win coming.
But now...
That smug bitch on the left. Dear oh dear.
Now, Mr. Speaker, we're the slowest growing economy...
I said beg, Okie Native. But they could bang if they want, but no nutting.
...in the G7. The Chancellor, sitting 2 places along from her, told the House his view was positively tiggerish of the British economy, yet it has the worst economic growth figures for 5 years.
Just a thing. Oh, hang on, I have to go back slightly because I may have misheard something. Hang on.
Compensation paid as quickly...
Annoyingly, I have to go back because there was something... I was looking at the chat when he mentioned something and I need to make something... If it is now, then I have to make a particular point quite clear.
As it can be possibly done, and an understanding of the hurt that they...
Very smarmy. Very smarmy.
...feel. But this isn't the only failure of this government or the only failure of its policies. The government used to talk about a long-term economic plan. But now, Mr. Speaker, we're the slowest growing economy in the G7.
No one gives a fuck if we're the slowest growing economy in the G7. That was the point, by the way. I actually wanted to wait for that one. It still means we're growing, and I looked at the forecasts. Yes, economic growth has gone down, but we are still growing. Okay. Just thought I'd add this. Yeah, I did a little research.
The Chancellor, sitting 2 places along from her, told the House...
Saki, am I watching the chat on my tablet? Of course I am. Because annoyingly, I don't have 2 screens, and I can't watch the chat while I'm watching the YouTube video that you see on the stream tablet. And yes, I know it's on the bingo chart you have. Along with, I believe, the word bollocks. So there's another one for you.
His view was positively tiggerish of the...
Does someone know what tiggerish means? Because I have no idea.
British economy, yet it has the worst economic growth figures for 5 years. What plans does the government have to change course?
I just want to add a little context to the term long-term economic plan. So the whole idea was based around the very notion of having to get out of austerity. And to do that, we had to get our budget deficit down, which we have done. The deficit actually is no longer there. It's a budget surplus. Yes, a lot of people paid the price. I am one of those people, okay? I don't exactly live comfortably. It's just one of those pitfalls to living in austerity. In 2010, I was still unemployed at the time, just while at uni. 2011, I had a job. I worked until from 2010, late 2010 to mid 2012. I worked for a company before redundancy due to losing a contract. They lost contract on a day shift, dickheads. But I spent many years unemployed in an area of the country that's not very easy to get work in. I didn't blame anyone for it. It was a case of there wasn't any economic growth. There was no money to put into it because they had to cut. They had no choice. And I understand that enough to know that you don't just pump money into something and hope it fixes the problem. That's not how it works. Sometimes you have to dig yourself out yourself, which is what I did. It's unfortunate, but it's one of those weird things about the economy. It cannot simply be fixed by throwing money at it, which is unfortunately one of your policies here. We still have economic growth, so it doesn't truly matter that it's not as fast as it could be. It's fluctuated a bit. It did when Brexit was, the referendum came in. Tiggerish means exuberant, joyful, bouncy. Why does the bouncy not surprise me? And now I've got Tigger songs stuck in my fucking head. Anyway, the economy not growing as much as planned is unfortunate, but it's not unless it continues, it's not a problem. It's a quarter. It doesn't matter. It will be corrected soon enough.
To ensure we do get economic growth?
We have economic growth.
First of all, can I say to the right honourable gentleman, on the Windrush generation, I was Home Secretary when some of these decisions were taken, and mistakes were made about individual cases, and I've apologised for that. The former Home Secretary also apologised.
She has very, very publicly done this. I don't know why Corbyn keeps... I swear he's not listening when she says this.
Apologise for that. The right honourable gentleman is right in saying these are decisions that have been taken under successive Home Secretaries, including under the last Labour government. And if he wants to talk about the economy, let's just see what we've seen in our economy in recent weeks. Day-to-day spending in surplus for the first time in 16 years.
I remember when George Osborne, former Chancellor to the Exchequer, tweeted about this. Now, he doesn't work for the government anymore. I think he's chairman of the Northern Powerhouse, which is great. Of course it is. I was watching a select committee yesterday before PMQs, and he was talking about it and how the government can work with them to get the best out of it. But when he tweeted this out, obviously the majority of responses he got were incredibly negative, because they were talking about the suffering of people that took place to get rid of the deficit. It's like he had to make those decisions. I don't like Osborne in the slightest. I don't hate him. I just don't care for him at all. But I understand that he had to make some of the most unpopular decisions to get the budget deficit down. His long-term economic plan worked, though. There's no denying it. The fact the deficit no longer exists means it worked. Okay, so Sean. The Windrush generation were people who came to this country after World War II from the Commonwealth. They are typically of ethnic minority backgrounds and came on a boat called Windrush. Unfortunately, they didn't have any documentation, and even when the Immigration Act came in the 70s, I think, they were not given paperwork. Didn't require it either, but they were by then citizens without documentation to prove it. Unfortunately, due to immigration policies, current ones, those people without documentation were caught up in this scandal and, well, bent over and shafted. I believe my last PMQ stream was predominantly about the Windrush generation. Feel free to listen to that if you want, but I think I've summarised that pretty well. It's basically a clusterfuck. Some paperwork was lost by the Home Office. It was later found, luckily. A lot of people have been kicked out of the country, or not allowed back in. So it got messy, and it's been the main focal point for 2 previous PMQs, which led to Christ. It led to the current, former Home Secretary from. Oh, thank you, Tiger Lily. The former Home Secretary Amber Rudd forced to resign because she lied about some targets. I was going to do a video on that, but I decided not to on the grounds that it was too much effort. Also because of all the overtime this week, I just could not do it. So yeah, I hope that summarises somewhat what the Windrush scandal was about.
The lowest net borrowing in over a decade. Exports of goods and services at a record high, employment at a record high, and real wages up. That's a Conservative government delivering an economy fit for the future.
This is a debatable one about the and Corbyn's going to mention it, referencing poverty, some subjective arguments. It's debatable whether or not real wages have gone up, because if it matches the cost of living, then it's not gone up. It's just fallen in line with inflation, or with the cost of living, which is always quite expensive, unless you well, yes. Let's carry on with this.
Mr. Speaker, 4 facts about the economy.
I changed Oki Native to Alfarius because it was released, the image for it was released last week. The Alfarius miniature, which, as a lot of people know, I derived my name from. Alfarius' identical twin, Omegon. It'll be released on May 12th, I believe. And I've waited for years. Not a joke, I have waited for years to get that Primarch, which I don't think will be that. It looks amazing. He's holding a spear, he's wearing full armour, it looks fantastic. Anyway.
Mr. Speaker, more people in debt, more people using food banks.
Okay, more people in debt. This is quite a difficult one. A lot of it could come down to personal choice, a lot of it could be down to circumstance. It's a tricky one as well, because I don't know how you would go about resolving more people being in debt. You can't wipe it out, which I know you'd probably want to, or give them, because even if you do that, all that does is tell the people that they don't have to learn the lesson, they can just live excessively and then try again. Some people go so far as to get credit cards and just spend on it and then get screwed on the interest, or they go to companies like Wonga and get a short-term loan, which doesn't fix your problem at all because you have to pay interest on it, which effectively fucks you. It is a case of I'm as stated, I'm not wealthy, but I understand the pitfalls enough to know you shouldn't you shouldn't ever try or look to put yourself in that position. So the more people in debt thing, it depends on circumstance. If it's student debt, I know you try and wipe it out. If it's debt from credit cards, I'd love to know the reasoning that people got the credit cards and decided not to pay them off in the first place. But again, that is an individual-based circumstance. If it's because they're not paying the rent or because they don't earn enough, then you have to look at the location, and it's... Oh dear. Oh yeah. Viper Sword, I just can't. That stuff is... It's cancer. I know that originally what companies like Wango do short-term loans, they didn't have restrictions on interest rates and stuff. But then they had to abide certain laws, financial laws, and that changed. So they're more, quotes, reasonable. But it's not the case at all. Realistically, it's unreasonable. The food bank thing, as someone who has had to use one, that's a very difficult one. Because and that comes down to the cost of living. It is dependent on the area you live in, but also occupation. It's quite tricky. You can't use that as a shot against the government though, because well, you can. You can obviously use it against the government for their policies, but we know why the government had to introduce austerity. And your solution is to throw money, which was the very reason austerity was introduced. It's a vicious little cycle. And I know that's not a popular... I know there might be some people who do support Labour that watch this. I would apologise, but honestly, if you think the solution to any problem is to simply throw money at it, then you're an idiot. That sounds unpopular, but it's the truth. And unfortunately that seems to be the core of this PMQs, down to simply just throwing money at it and whatever sticks is the correct amount. And if anything falls to the floor, pick it up and keep it as well, because we're dynamite at economics. Anyway.
More people sleeping on our streets.
Do you think immigration policy affects that? You know, when you let loads of people into the country, or have illegal immigrants in this country taking up houses from people who deserve them? Didn't think of an answer for that either.
And more children in poverty.
Argument. Very, very difficult one to argue. Because you would define poverty by set parameters from studies or from think tanks that you agree with. Whereas others will counter that with regards to the term, and it's a turn of phrase used by a number of people, the absolute poverty.
And the consequences of decisions made by the Chancellor of the Exchequer are that the NHS is suffering the longest funding squeeze in history. It sent our health service into an all-year-round crisis. Will the Prime Minister...
Crisis again. All-year-round NHS crisis. Okay. More people are using the NHS. Okay? That doesn't mean you need to throw more money at it, though. That just means more people need it, use it. It's like education. You're going to mention that later. And crime. More crime being committed, more students going to schools. Do you fix the problem with simply pumping more money into it? That doesn't sound right. But I'm sure there's more to it. We'll get to it later, obviously.
Apologise to NHS patients waiting longer than ever for the worst A&E waiting times on record.
To address Miss Steam, if parents can't afford to look after their kids, then the kids get taken away. They do. And Viper Sword is cute. Everyone should type that in the chat. And don't worry, if she starts timing people out, I will give literally everyone but Dylan a wrench. Government's version of Wango. I just saw that, Davey.
Well, I gave the Right Honourable Gentleman some facts about the economy. I can give him some others. More people in work, and actually fewer children in absolute poverty under...
Look at that coconut next to Theresa May.
When it comes to the National Health Service, since November, my right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, has announced £10 billion extra for the National Health Service. But I have also...
Stop timing people out, Viper. Well, you know what I'll do? I'll just correct this temporarily. Can't have Viper Sword timing people out. Discanal, I hope you're ready. You may time Viper Sword out. Or Laura. Or Miss Steam. You should know better. Anyway, let's carry on for a minute. You'll get your wrench back at the end of the stream, by the way, Viper Sword.
Also said that we want to ensure that the National Health Service is able to operate on a long-term plan. That's why we are conducting a review to produce that long-term plan with sustainable multi-year funding.
I think it's important to plan ahead a little. I think that's a good thing. It's not like... I guess some people will certainly draw a comparison to like President Trump. They always talk about, complain about how he acts in the moment. And I think considering the nature of his job, I get that. You can't really plan too much. You've got too much going on. You're in charge of far too many things. You have to legislate so much shit. And tweet, obviously, to make the news. With Prime Ministers, though, and the terms being longer, you want to plan. And that makes sense. I don't see how it's bad, though, to plan for this. And I think that's one of the failings of Labour, is that while at this as opposition, they're not providing counter policies or any arguments for it. Even though I believe Ed Miliband did a little, not much, but whenever he mentioned something good, the Conservatives used it, which is a good thing, surely. I know obviously you want to win, but at the same time, you've got to work with your enemy. Daddy Trump. Yeah. Who timed this? I just have to check quickly. Who was the lucky person that timed Viper Sword out? By Miss Steam and by Discanar. Wow. Okay. Carrying on.
That's the sensible approach to take. Not just to say this is all about money, but to say how can we ensure that the NHS is the NHS that will deliver for people in the future. That's about funding. It's also about reforming the NHS to make sure patients get the right treatment.
Mr. Speaker, not only was March the worst month on record in A&E departments...
That's only because more and more people used it.
It was also the worst month for cancelled operation.
I don't know the reasoning for that. I was unable to ascertain the exact reasons for cancelled operations.
There are 100,000 vacancies.
Whether that is connected or not is an argument that can be made, but unfortunately I couldn't find anything to support it. Mostly because I was too tired, but also because it wasn't something immediately obvious.
For NHS staff, and the Prime Minister personally intervened to overrule the Health Secretary and the Home Secretary when they asked for a relaxation of visa rules in order to recruit staff to work in our NHS. But it's not just the NHS where the government is damaging our public services. In January, the Education Secretary promised that no school would see a cut in its funding.
By the way, Jeremy Hunt, when he said that's not true, you may have noticed him mumble it. He is quite right. He did not say what Corbyn said he said.
Last week, he was invited to repeat that pledge and refused. I wonder why. Will the Prime Minister now tell parents...
You're already lying. So I just want to say, if you're already lying, it's going to be very hard for people to start believing you.
Teachers and students the truth that the school's budget is in fact being cut in real terms all over the country.
Okay, so this brings up a rather interesting argument, and this was by, I believe, a think tank in 2017. Okay, so there was an article for it, but I haven't got it on screen. It says here the government is to cut school funding per pupil for the first time since the mid-90s. A new analysis by the Institute for Fiscal Studies has determined. The respected think tank calculated that real term spending on school pupils would drop by 6.5% over the course of this Parliament, with further education funding also set for significant decreases. If I remember correctly, it's a bit further down. Where is it? There's a reference to like more money going in, but that money not matching the increase in students using services. So it's one of those really weird arguments that technically more money is going into it, but with the increase in the number of students, it's not the case at all. If that makes sense. It's one of those weird ways where he can spin it to make it look like the government isn't spending more money when they are, but it doesn't match the fact that there are feckloads of people pumping out kids. So yeah, it's flaking off. Do you like your Omegon t-shirt? It's flaking off. Wow, don't you just love that quality, Miss Steam? Wow, if ever there was a reason to definitely use Teespring again, it would be that flaking off t-shirt. Dear oh dear. I'll keep that source there. What I'll do is after the stream, I will put all the relevant sources in the description. I might not title them though, because I'm very tired.
No, the right honourable gentleman is wrong. What we are doing is ensuring that there is more money available to schools. We are ensuring that we are protecting that core budget because we want to ensure that every child, regardless of the background, gets the education that they need and the education that fulfills their potential.
Interesting point here. Corbyn wants to obviously put more money in to match the number of students using the education system. And I get that a lot of people could counter by saying the government is wasting billions on pet projects like free schools. Yes, they are. They're wasting, or is it millions? I remember seeing it, but I just can't remember the number. In any case, it doesn't matter. Because if your intention is to then means assess it based on the number of students, you're setting yourself up for failure because some people don't know how to pull out or use contraception. So we're always going to have this problem of children. Oh, you can see the coconut's ear. He should own it and put it on a t-shirt.
And that's why, once again, it's not just a question of the money you put in, it's about how you spend the money you are spending. And that's why I'm pleased to say that 1.9 million more children are in good or outstanding schools under this government, and education standards are going up under this government. That's more opportunities for our young people.
So this is a very interesting argument. The good school thing is great. I believe most of those are academies. I'm not fond of academies. I didn't go to one. I went to a secondary school. I don't really care if people go to comprehensive, grammar, boarding, private. I don't care. As long as the syllabus is the same, I don't really give a shit. Obviously, there is arguments made for quality of teaching, and that's where Jeremy Corbyn takes issue, because he wants all kids to get the same. And I can see that. But I think it should be a case of, if the parents want to pay for their kids to go to private school, then they do. And you also don't have much of a leg to stand on when your shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott herself sent her children to private school. You don't have much of a leg to stand on. If anything, you're a hypocrite. Fuck's sake, in a recommended article, it was on Diane Abbott, with Diane Abbott talking about the betrayal of the Windrush people. There was a reference to you taking on a romantic holiday on your motorbike. Fuck me. Oh, you are so blind and hypocritical, it's unreal. I went to change to an academy. It became shit. Yeah, I will agree. Not all academies have worked. I do understand that not all have worked, but I know that a lot have worked. I think it is definitely interesting. I've always found that when the government interferes with NHS or with education, they meddle with the system and then it just falls apart. It's unfortunate.
Jeremy Corbyn,
Mr. Speaker, it is quite astonishing that the Education Secretary has been corrected by the UK Statistics Authority. The IFS says that schools' budgets are being cut, and the Prime Minister still appears to be in denial. It's not just...
It's not cut if less money is if it's not a case that if more money is going into it. You consider it a cut if the money doesn't match the number of students using the service, the mandated service.
Just in NHS and education where this government is damaging our public services. Mr. Speaker, it is also about police budgets. The previous Home Secretary claimed there was no link between police numbers and serious violent crime, yet
there is no link between the two.
Office civil servants said there is a link. Who does...
Yeah, asserted it. They did not prove it.
The Prime Minister think is right?
The first person is right. There is no link between the two. This is really irritating, by the way. Because you've got, for example, a Labour-held stronghold, well, we've got council elections tonight, it might actually become a stronghold, of London. The Mayor of London is a Labour member, and he wants to introduce stricter laws on knives. Okay, do that. Do you really think it's going to stop people from doing what they were already doing, and that was breaking the law in the first place, by using a knife? Effectively, all you've done is disarm people from defending themselves with a butter knife. Idiot.
Well, what can I say, first of all, on the issue of...
And to address Prospero, yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I remember reading about how police are under increased pressures to deal with hate speech on the internet, with hate crime units working overtime and not getting paid for it, and blah, blah, blah. Get off Twitter. Clearly, the character limit isn't good enough for you. You are not woke enough for it. Okay? Okay?
Of crime and police budgets. Of course, we are making available this year £450 million more pounds for police forces.
Now we can talk about Diane Abbott and her general innumerate fuck-uppery. You see, I remember mentioning this in a video about how much of a bungling fuck-knuckle she is. Right. Well, for £450 million, you could train tens of thousands of police officers. Because according to her, to train 10,000, you'd only need 80 million. And pay them. Okay, let's say that's correct. To train them and pay them for a year, it's 80 million. Okay. So we're going to be able to have loads more? Like, over 50,000 more? That sounds amazing. That sounds like a problem solver. Hey, if you ever want to make a compliant environment, make sure you have lots of police on the street to make people absolutely fear for their lives. That'll solve the problem. Totally. Throw that money at them. It will work. And, yes, Tiger Lily pepper spray is considered, no joke, a firearm in this country. So you cannot use it. There is an equivalent, but I cannot remember the name of it. So I will quickly tab out and go find it. Pepper spray equivalent. Yeah, I spelled equivalent wrong. Legal alternative to mace or pepper spray. I think it's like there's a name for it as well. It's really lame. Stop a red legal non-irritant dye spray. Maglite torch. Just carry chili powder. There was another name for something alternative, and it's genuinely got the lamest name in the world. Criminal identifier spray. There it is. Found it. Criminal identifier spray. Yeah, that's what we get It's not illegal. It's not pepper spray. Yeah. I wish we did dibs. And no, Sean, hairspraying in a lighter is not illegal, but we don't generally make it a point to carry hairspray. Zippos, maybe. Anyway, let's carry on.
Across the country, we have been protecting police budget, which is in direct contrast to what I was suggested to me I should do by the former Shadow Home Secretary, the former Labour member, now the Mayor for Manchester, when he suggested 5 to 10% cuts could be given in police budgets. But can I also say to the right honourable gentleman that he talks about the issue of numbers and the relationship between police numbers and crime. His own shadow police minister has said in terms that there isn't that relationship between police funding and the number of crimes that take.
Yes, cis spray. That's right, cis absolutely destroys the enemy. Oh, you can't see the coconut in that image.
Place. Once again, it's how we ensure we're dealing with these issues. It's ensuring that the police are able to deal with the challenges and crimes of today, and that's what we're doing with our serious violence strategy, with our National Crime Agency, taking action across the board to ensure that our police are able to keep people safe.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, our Shadow Police Minister was pointing out that there's been
I've been sprayed in the eyes with Lynx. I can confirm it fucking hurts.
0.3 billion cut in police budgets in the last Parliament, and it's her government that is underfunding our police force.
The government had no choice. The crime rates were down, so it could be cut because it was okay to do it at the time. The crime rates were in fact down. So it made sense to cut the budget because you didn't require the services. And also we needed to find money so we could pay off that fucking deficit, you dickhead.
21,000 police officers have lost their jobs since 2010. 6,700 police and community support officers lost their jobs. In the meantime, violent crime is rising, and sadly, there are deaths from knife crime on the streets of most cities, particularly in London.
Yeah, be proud of that one, Labour.
Mr. Speaker, the economy is slowing, homelessness is rising, more children are living in poverty, the Home Office in chaos, and the government making a complete shambles.
Oh, he's not even... Oh, I've just realised. He's not even going to ask a question now. He's just going to finish on some sensationalised statement about how everything's in crisis. I guess I chose the title on the thumbnail correctly with something's in crisis. I might just change that later to everything's in crisis. I think it's appropriate. And I'm not going to bother finishing this because of that. It's an absolute joke. So, what I'll do, if anyone is... yeah, the Speaker always sounds annoyed. There is a bit of a rumour going around now that he might be forced out of his job, the Speaker, that is. He's been accused of bullying by a number of people, including the former Black Rod. If it sticks, he'll be pushed out. He'll just become a regular member of the Commons, or maybe go into the House of Lords, you never know. Wait, what's this, Socky? He needs to learn about it sometime. What's this? What do I need to learn? Wait, what? Huh? I need to learn stuff? I feel like I missed something. Let's see. Cis. But I'm pretty sure links in the eyes with the same effect. I'd have no idea what you guys are talking about. Okay. But yes, the Speaker might... There's a bit of a thing going on. If it gets any more steam... I am reading the chat, but honestly, I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about. It's just all over the place. Anyway, why do you like to punish me so much? Because it's hot. And what's hotter than spanking someone? And I know you're enjoying it. I bet while I'm telling you this, you're smiling. You could pretend you're not, but not for long. And yes, the chat's done it. Oh, the fuck. I didn't realise. I think I lost what the conversation was when Oki Native wrote. Depends on how much his cut is from the internet can show Saki. That confused me. Anyway, I think I'm done here. Thank you all very much for joining me this evening. I would have gone for longer, but honestly, I'm just so tired. There will be a video out on my main channel tomorrow. It's just a shit post, but hopefully you enjoy it. So thank you all very much for joining me, and have a lovely evening. Oh yeah, your wrench. I'll do that in a minute.